Hi, Mike Steinell here. First of all, thanks for listening to this audio novel, this audio podcast, Murder at Birdland. I really appreciate it. If you think other people you know might like it, just hit that little share button and send it to somebody on your contact list. It's easy to do. Today's episode 11, has a little bonus track at the end of it. The title of it is Men in Purple Shoes, Part 1. It features the beautiful vocal stylings of Rosanna Eckert and yours truly on keyboards. So we hope you enjoy it. As before, it relates to the story you've been following along. Martin Spencer has a reoccurring dream about men in purple shoes. There's more about purple shoes coming up in later episodes, so stay tuned.
Rosewood Audio presents Murder at Birdland, an audio novel by Mike Steinell, narrated by Mike Steinell and special guest narrator Rich DeRosa. Murder at Birdland is a work of fiction, loosely inspired by the lives and experiences of jazz musicians in the late 1940s who performed in and around 52nd Street in New York City. All names, places, and incidents depicted in this novel are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events is purely coincidental. And now, Episode 11.
Chapter 21, Lenox Hill. Men danced in the sky. They were well dressed in their tuxedos. They wore purple shoes. They moved gracefully. Martin was somehow floating with them. He felt light. There was a moon half hidden by clouds. There was music. It seemed to be coming from the clouds. The song was vaguely familiar, a half-remembered, half-forgotten thing. He couldn't place the tune. The more he tried, the more it slipped away. It made him sad. A telltale scent hit his nose, and he took in a deep breath. The fragrance was familiar, but like the tune, hard to place. He inhaled deeper, and when he did, his head began to pound. He grimaced and coughed.
Martin? Martin, can you hear me?
Martin didn't answer. The question was irritating. His head hurt, and he was trying to remember the tune. A woman's voice asked softly, "Martin? Martin?" The voice was familiar. He tried to open his eyes, and as he did, pain shot through the back of his skull. It was intense. He grimaced, tried to lift his head, then coughed. From his left, a different woman's voice. "Sir, why don't you have a sip of water?" He felt a hand on his shoulder and then a straw near his lips. "He's been out a long time," the nurse said. "It's good that he's waking up." Martin took a sip of water, swallowed hard, and asked in a whisper, Where am I?" "You're in the hospital, sir," the nurse answered. "Try to drink." "Hospital? Stormont Vale?" His voice was weak. He was referring to Stormont Vale Hospital in Topeka. Shooter said,
You're in Lenox Hill Hospital, Martin.
No. There's no Lenox Hill in Topeka," Martin insisted. "Martin," Sondra said softly, "you're in New York City, not Topeka." He stared at Sondra for a good bit, then at Shooter, then at the nurse. Why am I in New York? I've never been to New York." He shook his head in confusion. "And who are you people?" Shooter began to answer, but Martin interrupted. He turned toward Sondra. Wait. I know you, don't I?" Sondra smiled. "Of course you do. We met a few nights ago. Shooter and I rode with you in the ambulance." "Ambulance?" he asked. I don't understand. What happened?
You got mugged, Martin. And they did a job on you, too.
Mugged? He asked. He reached up to feel the large turban-like bandage on his head.
Don't you remember? I went back to the Deuces to get Sondra so she could hear Billy. I wasn't gone that long. When we was back, there was an ambulance and a crowd standing around. We saw it was you in the ambulance. The medical guy asked if we knew you. He had us right along. Don't you remember, Martin?
Martin shook his head and winced. Who's Billy? You really don't remember? Sondra asked. No, I can't. I can't seem to. He winced again. Sondra leaned toward him and asked, Does it hurt bad? Martin closed his eyes, squinted, and asked in a louder voice, Why am I in... He stopped and looked toward Sondra again. Do I know you? Like I said, Martin, we met 2 nights ago. You bought me a drink and the cover charge at the door. I'm in New York? Why am I in New York?
Martin, you're looking for your father.
My father's dead, Martin said softly. Makes no sense.
Well, Martin, that's what you told me 2 nights ago. And believe me, it didn't make no sense then either. Actually, it was a bit crazy, but I think you were just a little drunk.
Shooter smiled and winked. The nurse interrupted. Sir, you were admitted without identification, so I need to get your information, and then we can notify your family. They'll want to know where you are. The nurse turned to Shooter and Sondra and suggested, I think it would be good for the patient to get some rest after I get this chart filled out. Once Shooter and Sondra had left, the nurse began. Full name? Martin Robert Spencer, Martin said in a flat tone. Date of birth? May 12, 1950. 1915? The nurse asked. No, 1950, like I said. Okay, she said slowly as she scrunched half her face in confusion. She took a long breath and continued. Place of employment? He answered carefully, keeping his head still. When he gave Sylvia's home number as his emergency contact, the nurse paused. That's interesting. He listed the Menninger Foundation as his employer and gave his home address. When he complained of the headache, she left and quickly returned with 2 pills. They're very strong, but they'll help. Can you lift your head to drink? Where's the adjustment thingy for the bed? Martin asked. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean. Just roll to your side and lift up. These pills will really help. As he did, he glanced around the room for the first time. Wow, you really need to upgrade this place. How old is this bed? The nurse frowned. We got new beds last year. Then she smiled. Now rest. Martin lay still, looking at the ceiling, searching for his last memory. The funeral? He whispered. Martin had treated patients with brain injury-induced amnesia before in his residency and often wondered what it must feel like. Now he knew. This is very weird, he said softly. When the pills took effect, the men in purple shoes returned, this time dancing in the trees. The sky was beautiful, full of stars. The song began again, softly. Suddenly he had a pen and a notepad. He tried to notate the music, but it was too elusive. The notes vanished faster than he could write them down. Then the moon and the stars began to sing in a language unknown to him, yet he understood everything. It was beautiful. Gradually the singing stopped. The tune faded. The men with purple shoes disappeared, and the stars began dissolving into a pitch-black sky. Mr. Spencer? Mr. Spencer, are you awake? He opened his eyes to find a nurse and 2 men standing at the foot of his bed. They were all dressed in white. The nurse was the one who had been with him earlier. One of the men was small, wore a knee-length lab coat, a tie, glasses, and held a clipboard. The other was large and muscular. He wore a white T-shirt, white pants, and athletic shoes. The small man began in a cheerful but official tone. "Ah, you are awake. That's good to see." He smiled without showing teeth. His eyebrows went up and he asked, "Mr. Spencer, could we ask you some questions?" He lowered his eyebrows and continued to smile sans teeth. "About your information?" When he said information, he tapped the form on the clipboard with his pen. Of course," Martin said carefully. "See, Mr. Spencer, we tried to reach your mother at the number you gave us without success." "She was probably out. Did you leave a message on her answering machine?" The smile disappeared from the small man's face, and he and the nurse exchanged glances. "No," he said slowly, "we didn't leave a message on her answering machine." He looked at his clipboard. "We also called the place you listed as your place of employment, the Menninger Foundation." Good. Maybe they can reach my mother," Martin said. His head felt better. The small man continued. "Yes, the Menninger Foundation is quite well known, isn't it? But, Mr. Spencer, they say they have no record of you ever working there. Why don't you tell us the truth? Where do you work, Mr. Spencer?" "I work at Menninger's. Actually, I'm a doctor. A clinical psychologist." Martin swung his legs to the floor. Look, let me make a call." The nurse moved toward him. The small man said sharply, "I don't think you should try that." Suddenly the big man in the T-shirt was pushing him back onto the bed. The small man spoke angrily now. He scolded, "Mr. Spencer, you must remain in bed. If you don't, Mr. Bartle will restrain you." Martin looked at the big man. "Mr. Bartle, is it? Is that the name? Mr. Bartle, I would like to find a phone and call the Menninger Foundation in Topeka, Kansas." The big man grunted. "Nope, not happening, pal." The small man had composed himself and made once again the toothless smile. "So, Mr. Spencer, what is your real birthday?" "First of all, it's Dr. Spencer, and like I told the nurse here, it's May 12, 1950. They shook their heads. Mr. Bartle chuckled. The small man frowned and said softly, "That's next year. It's 1949, Mr. Spencer. Today is November 9, 1949. According to you, you haven't been born yet." Martin looked around the room. No. Say, is this some kind of a... Look, all we need to do is find a telephone so I can make that call. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. Mr. Bartle moved toward him and grabbed him by the shoulders. This time Martin resisted and swatted the big man's arms away. "Let me find a phone," he said loudly. Martin headed toward the door, brushing aside the nurse, who flinched and took a step backward. Bartle, who had leaned back momentarily, surprised by Martin's resistance, now jumped toward him and tackled him. The two crashed to the floor. Martin's bandaged head struck the floor hard. Images flooded back. Shooter helping him up off the sidewalk. Pincus chewing his cigar. Art Tatum. Count Basie. Billie Holiday sitting in. Tony Martin's tie. Grady on the kitchen floor. Denise fainting. Steve the paint store man running into the dark. Vincent, the experiment on Elm Street, and the seams on Sondra's stockings. As the memories returned, his body went limp beneath Bartle's weight. Suddenly Martin remembered something very important. "Where's my coat?" Bartle had him pinned down. Martin squirmed and shouted, "Where's my coat? Where's my coat?" He didn't see the hypodermic until he felt the sting on the side of his neck. He yelled one more time before everything went black. "Where's my coat?" Chapter 22, Bellevue. Bellevue Hospital is the oldest public hospital in the United States. Its origins trace back to a two-story brick building erected in 1736 on the city commons, now City Hall Park. The current structure was built in 1931 and is best known for its psychiatric wards. Over the years, the Bellevue Psychopathic Hospital has housed both the famous and the infamous. Norman Mailer after stabbing his wife, Eugene O'Neill during several stays in the alcoholic ward, and briefly Mark David Chapman. The running joke on the street was, I asked a cop in Manhattan how to get to Bellevue Hospital. He said, "That's easy, pal. Go crazy." Martin woke slowly from his chemically induced slumber. Once again he had been dreaming of men in purple shoes, and for a moment he tried to process what it meant, then gave up. The room was dark except for a bit of light from the window. He raised his arm to touch the bandage on his head, but was stopped short by the handcuffs. He yanked on it hard, which only made his wrist hurt and his head hurt more. He took a breath and tried to assess his situation. Where's my coat? The coat held the styrofoam sleeve. The sleeve held the photos, the ones that brought him to 1949 and the ones that would take him back to 2001. He scanned the room. It was sparsely appointed. A bed, the one he was handcuffed to, a stand with a pitcher of water, and two chairs next to a door that led to the hall. A bathroom and a closet on his left. "Where's my coat?" he whispered almost in a growl. He tugged on the cuff again, then slumped back. "Need the photos. If I don't have them, I'm stuck. I'm stuck." He slid his feet to the floor and began dragging the bed toward the closet. The legs of the bed had wheels, but they were locked, and they scraped against the tiled floor. With considerable effort, he stretched far enough to unlock 3 of the 4 wheels. He couldn't reach the 4th. "Where's Houdini when you need him?" he muttered. He pulled the bed slowly, 6 inches at a time, the locked wheels screeching with each tug. He paused often to listen. There were footsteps and voices in the hall, but no one came in. When he finally reached the closet, he found his shirt, tie, pants, and jacket hung neatly on hangers. There was a large blood stain on the back of the jacket. On a shelf, his underwear, socks, and shoes. No overcoat, no sleeve, no camera. "Where's the damn coat?" He said it loudly, and immediately the door to the hall opened and a nurse entered. She spoke over her shoulder. "Mr. Russo, we need your assistance here, right now, Mr. Russo." Mr. Russo was smaller than Mr. Bartle, Martin's attacker from the day before, but he wore the same uniform, a white T-shirt, white pants, and athletic shoes. He smiled as he approached and said cheerfully, "Sir, let's get this bed back to where it's supposed to be." Martin stared at him and almost snarled, "Where's my coat? I need it. Where's my coat?" "Back in bed, sir," Russo said calmly. Martin started swinging once Russo was within range. With only one hand free, it was ineffective and comical for the most part. Russo was quick, agile, and leaned back and away from each attempted jab. The bed scooted on the hard tile floor and squeaked. Martin was surprised at his own anger and violence. It was uncharacteristic. And to make matters worse, Russo giggled softly with each blow undelivered. When it was over, the bed was back in place and both of Martin's arms were handcuffed to it. He muttered under his breath, "Stuck. I'm stuck. Like Steve, the paint store man." Within a few minutes, a man was standing next to Russo at the door. He was small, wore glasses, a knee-length lab coat, a tie, and was holding a syringe in his hand. The small man was a different small man than before, but he smiled the same toothless grin. Martin said softly, "Wow, Must be a dress code here, huh?
Martin, wake up, Martin.
The room was dark. Martin tried to focus. Shooter, is that you? What are you doing here? A hand moved past his head and pulled the string that turned on the small light over the bed. It was Sondra. He smelled her perfume as she leaned close. Sondra? Shh, she said. We snuck in. The man guarding the door is asleep for now. Martin smiled. I'm sorry about yesterday. I remember now. I couldn't remember anything yesterday.
You got whacked hard, Martin. You're lucky to be alive.
Yeah, I guess I did. He turned to Sondra. I remember. We saw Count Basie, didn't we? And I saw Lady Day, but you weren't there. I'll see her again, don't worry, Sondra said. Martin tried to touch his head, and the handcuffs made a loud clunk.
Martin, what you try to do? Why they got you all shackled up?
I was just trying to get my coat, Martin said. I need it. He turned towards Sondra. You rode in the ambulance with me, didn't you? Yes, both of us did, she said, pointing to Shooter. What happened to my coat? You didn't have one, Sondra said. Not when they put you in the ambulance. Maybe it's in the emergency room, downstairs, where they brought me in.
Martin, you're not at Lenox Hill anymore. You're at Bellevue. You're in the loony bin, Martin. And by the looks of these cuffs, they think you're dangerous. What did you do, Martin?
I didn't do anything. I just wanted my coat. I really need my coat. He looked in turn at each arm that was handcuffed, then at Sondra. You don't think I'm dangerous, do you? Sondra smiled. No, you're not dangerous. A little weird, though, maybe. Look, I need my coat. Can you help me, Shooter?
What's so important about the coat?
Shooter asked. Martin knew he couldn't answer.
Were you carrying cash?
Shooter asked. Well, yes, I was, Martin answered.
Look, if it's money, I can spot you some for a bit. Then you can have your folks wire some from home. How much were you carrying?
$300, Martin said, more or less.
What? That's a wad. No wonder you got mugged. Did you flash that roll?
Sondra interrupted. Look, Martin, I think you need to call someone. Your wife? I'm not married, Martin said flatly. Well, how about some family? We need to notify somebody. With your cash gone, you need money. Maybe someone from home can wire some money. Can't you call someone in Topeka? No, I can't. Not for 50 years, he thought. Sondra moved to the side of the bed. What about someone you work with? You're a psychiatrist, aren't you? Can't you call your clinic or your office? No, I'm a psychologist, a clinical psychologist. Martin closed his eyes. It doesn't matter. I'm stuck here. I'm stuck and I don't know what I'm going to do. He wanted to cry but held it back. He shut his eyes. This is all messed up. I should have never tried it. I just don't know what to do. I'm stuck. Shooter jumped in.
I'm not sure what your story is, but I think you're a smart guy, so you got to figure this out. I don't think you're stuck at all. You just hit a bump, like that bump on your head.
Martin nodded. Sondra smiled at him. There was sound from the hall. They froze, expecting the guard to enter any minute. There were voices, then they faded. Shooter cracked the door and peered out.
He's gone, but probably not for long.
He moved to the bed.
Look, Martin, first thing we got to do, get you out of here. I have an idea. I'll be back tomorrow. You behave yourself.
So what should I do, Shooter?
Don't know for sure, but if you're some kind of shrink, you know the game. Play the game, Martin. I'll be back, I promise.
Sondra squeezed his arm. Be careful, Martin. I'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Murder at Birdland, an audio novel. To learn more about the author and the story behind the music, visit murderatbirdland.com or mikesteinell.com.
Man in purple shoes dance across the sky. Distant voices in the mist sing a lullaby. Light peeks through the door and leaves without a trace. Clouds collect the stars in a warm embrace. Purple misty clouds dance across the moon. Night slips away like an unfinished tune. Half-remembered songs from lands far away. Even the clouds turn their heads. They know they cannot stay. Will these dreams remain deep in the silence of the night, or will they be remembered